Welcome to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in Sacramento. Today we are joined by Chris Holden. He is the Assembly Majority Leader in the state capitol. And congratulations, Mr. Leader.
Well, thank you.
What does this mean exactly?
Well, it means that I'm a part of leadership, working with the Speaker and her leadership team.
Right.
My responsibilities is really to focus on the floor and operations of the floor. I have a wonderful assistant majority leader and Christina Garcia.
Sure.
And
Also from the Los Angeles area.
Indeed. And a number of whips who are part of the team. And our job is basically to keep the efficiency and the flow of business before the House.
So as a result of you being Majority Leader, does that mean that you are on fewer committees? And I don't mean that pejoratively. I'm just wondering, what does this mean?
Well, right. It means that, first of all, you don't chairing any other committees.
I understand.
The responsibility falls exclusively on the role as Majority Leader to perform those duties. But I have the same committee assignments as I did last term. But it's really an opportunity to sort of find myself in a position to provide support to other members, to make sure that information on how the flow of operations on the floor will happen, and to also help them in terms of monitoring bills and how they are making their way through the process so that we can have orderly business.
There's a lot of attention paid to Washington and the dysfunction in Washington, D.C. between the Democrats and the Republicans.
Right.
As someone who's covered Sacramento for quite some time, I don't think there's dysfunction. I do believe, in the depth of my core, that generally speaking, Republicans and Democrats in Sacramento get along fairly well.
We do.
And so I want to get a sense, as Majority Floor Leader, how do you interact with, would it be the Minority Floor Leader? How is that interaction?
Indeed. Well, yeah, we do. And I think we haven't had an opportunity just yet because we're starting things off and bills haven't started to flow yet. But just in terms of our relationship in years past, we've worked very well together. Marie Waldron is the Minority Floor Leader, and we've developed a really positive relationship, and we'll basically share information just so that each side knows what to prepare for the floor, what kind of motions are coming forward on our side, and hopefully a heads up in terms of troubled bills that might cause members of the other caucus to need to respond.
Recently on the floor, you invited someone very near and dear to you.
Right.
His name is Nate Holden.
Yes.
As an Angelino myself, I know Nate Holden very well. I feel like I grew up with Nate Holden in a sense.
Yeah.
He was on the Los Angeles City Council for many years. Prior to that, he was a member of the California State Senate.
Right.
He served when Governor Brown was governor the first time around.
Indeed.
And so the pictures your office have provided us with you and Dad and Governor Brown are epic. Epic.
Well,
tell me about that moment. What made you bring up Dad? How was it to see Dad and Governor Brown together again?
Well, it was exciting because, quite frankly, it was historic.
Right.
To have a father and son serve with the same governor over a 40-year period of time, that's quite remarkable. But it was really just great because, my dad had, in 4 years as a senator, had a very storied career in the Senate.
Could you give us a sense? Do you remember?
Yeah, well, he created and was a part of legislation that outlawed redlining, which was a technique that was used to mortgage and draw circles around where poor families lived. He was a part of legislation. It was his legislation to give a woman the right to enter into credit and get credit on her own without her husband having to co-sign.
I can't believe that in our lifetime that had to be a law.
I know.
Was the law before that, or was the law silent, essentially?
There was a law before that. And so the law that he authored made it possible for women on their own to go out and get credit without having a father or a husband sign for them to co-sign.
I have to ask, and I don't mean to be impolitic, but I gotta ask.
Yeah.
So Dad represented areas that were traditionally of color.
Yes.
In the 70s and 80s.
Right.
You don't represent areas traditionally of color.
Well, that's true.
You represent Pasadena.
That's
Do you think Dad ever would have dreamed that his son would represent Pasadena?
Probably not.
Right.
Probably not. But it's also exciting because I think that we do live in challenging times in a lot of respects, where we're constantly race is seemingly thrust into our living rooms. But notwithstanding that, I think one of the very important accomplishments of President Obama is that he was able to become president, and I think it sent a ripple throughout the entire country, and it sort of awakened in all of us that there is in all of us a colorblind perspective, and certainly a hope. And I think that in his presidency that reflects that, and certainly as it reflects in my community, it's about not so much the race, but can you get the job done, and if you can, we'll send you back.
We know that there is a big job ahead as it relates to the budget.
Yes.
The governor has proposed his budget. I'd be remiss if I didn't speak about higher education.
Right.
It's hard to deny that that issue has become a hot one.
Yes.
We know that Janet Napolitano, former governor of Arizona, former sheriff or department head of Homeland Security, is now head of the UC, and she is quite a tactician.
Yes.
And she maneuvered so that the UC Regents voted in favor of tuition increase.
Right.
The governor is not happy. In his budget proposal, he offered extra dollars if there was no tuition increase.
Yeah.
This is a battle royale.
Right.
And our students are in the middle.
Right.
So as majority leader, as a leader in our state, where does this end? How does this end?
Well, I think it's important that the regents understand the importance of the message that the governor is sending, and that is that these are California universities, and they were designed and developed at a time when this system became sort of preeminent for the entire world to follow. And it's important that our young people who live in California have an opportunity to go to a UC or CSU and to be able to have their share, their opportunity at the bite at the apple. And the regents have to stand up and come out and be transparent and be more accountable. And I think the governor's trying to make them that way.
It would seem to me that in the end, there will be a compromise. One would hope.
Yeah.
And we know that out of the legislature, there are various ideas floating around.
Right.
The speaker, for example, has talked about whether out-of-state students should be charged more. There's a discussion about whether we should limit the number of out-of-state students, although that may cause a revenue hit.
Right.
There are discussions literally of stripping some of the independence of the UC system, so they don't have this power. Should we eliminate the middle-class scholarship, which the prior speaker was a big champion of, as a way to increase revenue?
Right.
Where do you see, what's getting some heat on this front?
Well, I mean, those are all ideas. I'm not sure exactly which ones ultimately get the traction, but I think that they're all part of the discussion, all part of the mix, all part of what's going to require the UC Regents to come to the table and start to look at their role as being a little bit more open and accessible, and have not stone ears to what the people are saying.
Could it be, though, that maybe they make a good point? I mean, over the last few years, K-12 has clearly been the governor's priority. And, of course, K-12 is a foundation.
Right.
But K-12 has seen many more significant increases in budgetary items than the UC.
Well, I think the point I was making is that the CSUs, they have not taken on that same posture of, well, let's raise the tuitions. And given what we've come out of, and given the fact that so many young people have had a difficult time getting their their classes, we have to be a little bit more sensitive and respectful of the fact that these young people deserve an opportunity to break, and we need to find other ways to try to make to balance the books in doing so. That's not to say that at some point a tuition adjustment isn't appropriate, but I think we need to do our best now to make sure that the doors stay open.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. He's Chris Holden. He is Majority Leader in the California State Assembly. My name is Brad Pomerance, and this is California Edition.